2021, I got COVID, the Delta version. And
Worst.
some people, had COVID and nothing happened to them. I was one of those people that it hit me like a truck. I was in bed for over 6 weeks. I
Wow.
was so weak at one point that my husband had to help me to the bathroom because I could not keep any food down. I survived on bone broth and a spoon of mashed potatoes every day. My oxygen was in the 80s. At one point, I went to the hospital and they said, "You're not quite ready for a respirator yet. Come back when you are." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to do a respirator, so I guess I'm either going to get well at home or I'm going to die at home." so, and I had a high fever, like 102 or higher most days. I just ached everywhere. I was kind of delirious because I hadn't eaten in 6 weeks, and it was bad. And I finally got a hold of a doctor that prescribed for me some rather controversial things, but those controversial things got rid of most of my symptoms in less than 48 hours. My
No.
fever broke. I was able to keep food down. My oxygen was still low, but not quite in the 80s. And I started testing negative for COVID for the first time in 6 weeks. So I thought, okay, good. I'm on the road to recovery. Everything's going to be great. But a year after I recovered, I still had no energy. I was exhausted all the time. Brain fog wasn't even like that, was not a fair description. It wasn't fog, it was like brain brick walls. I was a website designer and I maintained websites for a living. And I would go into my clients' websites to make a change, and I couldn't remember what I was going into there for. And I could only work for like maybe 2 to 3 hours a day. And I had to keep copious notes about everything that I was doing and when I did it, and notes that I had completed it, because I just didn't have that mental capacity. Weeks of being that sick and oxygen that low, I'm sure just did damage to a lot of things inside. Um, I also had pain pretty much in all of my joints. I used to beg my husband for back rubs every single night because I had so much inflammation. I'm sure that I was just in pain all the time across my neck and my shoulders. I had during COVID, at some point during that 6 weeks, I developed a heart arrhythmia that never went away. It would skip beats every day on the regular. It would just bump, 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 like just crazy rhythms. And and I was just exhausted all the time. Sometimes my heart would race up to 150 beats a minute, just sitting still on a couch. If I did any exercise at all, it would throw me into that arrhythmia. So I was not doing exercise. I hadn't really exercised in several years. As a result, I was nearing about 200 pounds. Also, for over 5 years before even COVID, when I went into menopause, my hormones just went crazy. And when I went to a natural doctor like yourself and asked him to test my hormones and give me some ideas of what I could do, because my mom had breast cancer 3 times. So I already knew I didn't really want to do the prescriptions, but I already knew that was not an option for me. So I went to this doctor and he explained to me that my estrogen, even in menopause, was supposed to be between 30 and 40. Mine was 5.
Wow.
So it was, and if you don't know, it literally is like at 5, you're pretty much losing the will to live. You're it's just horrible. Like my kids would be playing in the living room, playing games and hanging out for family dinner and just having a ball. And I could hear them laughing in the other room. And I would be sitting on my bathroom floor crying. And I would say to myself, stop being so ridiculous. Go have fun. They're here now. Go be with your kids. And logically, I knew that the way I was acting was ridiculous. It was just impossible to control it. I also had a knee that I blew out downhill skiing when I was a kid. I grew up in Michigan, and so I raced as a kid, downhill racing. And I had my bindings set real tight. Michigan, the course was pretty much pure ice. And so I had my bindings set really tight so I could really hit that edge and I wouldn't pop out of my bindings. And I called a gate too close. And it just turned my whole leg around, just really did a job on my meniscus. And the doctors told my parents, well, because she's young, she can probably get by without having any surgery. We can put her on crutches, do some physical therapy, and it'll heal itself. But it's never going to be the same, and she'll probably have to have surgery someday. So we did that. And my knee would always give me trouble whenever I skied, because I still love to ski, but I could only ski for one day. My knee would blow up like a giant grapefruit. And I wouldn't even have a kneecap. It would just be all swollen in one day. I had, whenever I went up and down too many steps or went to the park with my kids or any of that, I was just constantly having a problem with my knee. So I was introduced, and I also had anxiety and stress, to the point where, God bless my husband. So as a result of the hormones, I had been doing those soda pellets that they do every month or every 3 months. You have to go in and they put in, the pellets, the hormones that you're lacking. And I had to have it done every 3 months. It was very expensive and it was incredibly invasive. I would always have a bruise about that big wherever it was at. It was painful. I hated doing it, so I would always put it off. And long about the middle of the 4th month, my husband would call and schedule the appointment because, he just wasn't able to tolerate, like, I would start to get that anxiousness as my hormones dropped. So I had been doing that for over 5 years. Well, when I got introduced to the patches, I was just hoping that I would get some more energy and that I would be able to think more clearly so that I could do my work. And I put the patch, I started with X39 Eon and I did X49 as well because of the weight. I had heard that when you did X39, X49 in the clinical studies, that the average person lost, I think it was 10 or 11% body fat in just 60 days. And I was like, yes, please sign me up for that. And because I'd been trying to get rid of weight and I could go down to 600 calories and it didn't matter. I couldn't drop weight. So I started these patches and within about 2 weeks, my energy came back. Casey came in one day. I was working on the computer and normally I'd have to be done about 2:00 in the afternoon. And he came in and I'm working away and I'm like, dang, I'm getting a lot done today. And he goes, what are we going to have for dinner? And I'm like, dinner? And I looked at the clock and it was 6:15. Wow. And I just hadn't hit that wall that day. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it just continued. And it wasn't like I had this huge burst of energy where I was like running around cleaning my whole house. It was just kind of a return to the old me. And then I started to realize, I don't think I'm having that joint pain when I get up in the morning. For me, it wasn't the one patch wonder. It was gradual. And if I hadn't been paying attention, like with the energy, if my husband hadn't pointed it out, I don't know if I really would have noticed it because it was very subtle. Yeah. And then at about the 5, 6, it was more like the 6-week mark, right around the 6-week mark, I said to my husband, Casey, I said, babe, I don't think I'm having those skipped beats in my heart anymore. I haven't noticed it in a while. And he goes, well, maybe you ought to pay attention to that. And I'm like, maybe I should. And, I'm not going to tell you that I haven't had any episodes, but each episode gets farther and farther away and
Yeah.
less and less. And I used to have that daily.
Wow.
Um, and then with the soda pellets and the hormones, I was like, I don't want to do that. So, like normal, I'm just going to stretch it. And it's now been a little over 3.5 years since my last soda pellet. My husband hasn't called yet.
That's quite a stretch. So 3.5 years as opposed to 3.5 months, like before.
Right. And about the 7-month mark, my kids invited me to go skiing. And I only bought a ticket for one day. I only rented my equipment for one day because I knew I'd be done. My knee would swell up and I'd not be able to do anything. And what was really funny is I was really able to keep up with those 20 and 30-year-olds on the hill. And keep in mind, I was 60 years old at that time.
Wow.
And I had
I'm
not
60 years old now.
and I had not exercised in over 3 years.
Wow.
And that X49, I think, just really strengthened my leg muscles and protected me and gave me what I needed. And I was skiing with 20 and 30-year-olds. And I'm like, I'm not going to be the old lady of the group.
Wow. So
So,
all that after being a year of having like zero energy after
yeah,
COVID.
now I go until 9, 10 o'clock at night when I need to. And I'm the grandma that doesn't beg them to sit on the couch and read a book, but I run around the backyard and we shoot silly string at each other and pretend that we're spiders and things like that.
Oh
So
my gosh, I love that. I had no idea you had such a tough time with COVID, and that was 2021.
2021 and a full
Wow.
and a half later, I was still dealing with a lot of those symptoms.
That's a long, long case of long COVID.
Thank you for watching. And to learn more about this amazing technology, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.